When it comes to our drinking water, what are so many people missing that is super important? Stay tuned to today's episode to find out more. Welcome back to the Sarah Kleiner Wellness YouTube channel. Today, I have two water experts here to talk to you all about drinking water and what most people miss when it comes to optimal hydration. Now, water is probably one of my favorite topics. It's become that over food. And I think I'm going to have to create an entire playlist for new listeners to the channel just to go back and get the basics. But in this episode, we really do go over the basics of drinking water, what you should look for, what might not be optimal for you, and some different ideas. So I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. My guests, I'm going to put all of their information in the show notes so that you can follow them, follow their work, and get more information on this special kind of water that we do recommend that you take a look at. And before we jump into today's episode, I want to thank two sponsors. The first one is going to be Viva Rays. They are my go-to source for protecting my circadian rhythms. You can use code YOGI to save 15% off over at Viva Rays. And again, a lot of the glasses out there are not really what they say they are. These have been tested with a spectrometer, so I know that they're actually blocking the light waves that they say that they are. Second sponsor is Optimal Carnivore. They have created a beautiful landing page now for my listeners where you can get special deals. Huge fan of their Joint Restore product. It is bone marrow, bone matrix, and cartilage. So it is very, very helpful if you're someone who is super active and you really just want to support your movement and your joints and bones, all of those things. Just a fantastic product. So make sure to check them out, linked in the show notes below. And without further ado, let's jump into today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. Well, thank you for being here.
Love it.
Welcome to the show, everybody. My name's Sarah. Today I have Kenny and Gina here, and we're going to talk about hydration. And it's kind of beyond like drinking half your body weight in ounces, right? There's so much more to that story. So I'm so excited to chat. Thank you so much for being here today.
I know we're going to have a great conversation. It really surprised people with what water really is.
Yeah, let's jump right in.
Well, can I? Yeah, Kenny, you want to say hello? And
yeah,
well, I'll say hello. I'm very fortunate to be with Sarah and Gina. Sarah's got an awesome platform, a lot of crazy followers, big into health. And you guys know Gina, she's the founder of the Hydration Foundation and also wrote the book Quench. So if you guys need to get a good book to read about hydration, go buy the book Quench. There's a lot of good information that she'll share about structured water, hydration, obviously. So I think it'll be a lot of fun today. So.
Yeah, Sarah, we're glad to connect with your audience, and thank you for helping us spread better hydration for everybody without all that guzzling.
Oh gosh, don't get me started on the drink a gallon of water a day, the trend that is just won't seem to die.
I know. Well, let's start the conversation about what water really is.
Yeah.
Because people are, I'll bring the conversation through my training as an anthropologist. So I learned about hydration strategies because I was looking at desert communities around the globe and how they hydrated without 8 glasses of water a day. Like they should be dead. No gallons, no gallons floating around. I was looking at pre-industrial strategies. So I was trying to see what was closest to nature, and the amazing and exciting and miraculous information that these communities were hydrating with plants, with the water locked in plants. And that was so amazing to me. I thought, we've got to share this with the world. This is really important information, that the water inside of plants is a different kind of water than water, say, out of a running stream. And that happens because if you think about an aloe plant, right, or a cactus, or tubers under the ground, or a chia seed is an excellent visual, because people really get that plant releases a kind of jelly water. The aloe, that water is a extremely important part of our story about water that we were missing, which is water doesn't come just as a vapor or a liquid or all the way to the ice stage. Inside the liquid and ice, there's a long stretch where water becomes more and more concentrated into a gel-like or plasma-like state. And why that is so relevant and how could we have missed that is the water, what the water inside our cells look like. It's in this plasma state or this jelly-like state. And that kind of water is far more hydrating than liquid. And it does a second job that's really important, Kelly, which is in that gel-like state is when water transfers information coherently. Liquid does it, but not as, there's more static involved in the transformation of electricity and information. So that's a whole mouthful on what water really is and why it's important about our cells.
Yeah, because there's a coherence that happens inside the body, right? We're so attached to blood work and looking at things under a microscope where the water has been extracted, correct?
Right. And then we're taking it apart system by system and expecting to get all the information from one system.
Right.
Or some information that we're trying to match up with other information, not knowing that the cells, whatever that cell is, a brain cell or a liver cell, are communicating superconducting information back and forth to each other through this liquid crystalline system in the body. And that is incredibly important because what it helps us to get to then is why hydration is the conversation to be had around health, that all of the coherency of the signaling happens electronically or electrically because we're well hydrated. And hydration isn't just guzzling liquid. It's about ingesting beautiful foods. It's about having a high mineral life. It's about moving elegantly and gently throughout your day. It's about changing your mood. And so we are anthropologically speaking, we are in such a difficult story because the waters around us have been so monkeyed with molecularly so that they aren't able to coherently get information to us. And that's a big problem.
So there's a huge difference between drinking. I think tap water is kind of like bottom of the barrel, right? And a lot of bottled waters are going to be tap water. And then you have like reverse osmosis water or distilled water, right? Which is still not really optimal. Maybe we can discuss how those different waters, maybe we'll start with like the tap water and how, some bottled waters are just relabeled tap waters, how that could actually cause an issue within the body.
Yeah. So just very simply, all those waters have had the molecular structure broken in some way, or this continuity of information flowing through the way the molecules line up. They're just like wiring, if you want to look at it in a very mechanistic way. This wiring isn't aligned properly because it's got tons of stuff in it from the tap water or the bottled water or the way we don't treat our water with reverence, right? So we bottle it, shove it on the back of a hot truck and put it to, 1,800 miles away on the roads, and the water's in the bottle going, hang on, everybody. The molecules are just being, broken up. And so the value of foods is that the plants put water together. So they help, a plant getting sunlight and mineral information from the ground. It aligns that all up, puts it together. And then when we ingest an apple and the juice in that, the water in that apple is a completely different kind of water that we're getting than we would out of our tap. And so I really just trying to bring the research that I did with desert people, realizing they were using foods to hydrate. And this is, important information to begin with, because everybody only thinks of hydration and what you guzzle. and then alerting people to the ways that we contaminate and break up the water molecule through the way we treat water, whether it's through water treatment facilities where we wash it chemically, and then we shove it through pipes that don't allow water the spin that gets it to clean itself up. You know, there's so many points in the story where we're damaging our water, and that's why you get the conversation going around hydration, bringing in minerals and foods, and then how do we clean up our water on our planet. And that's how I got to Kenny, because Kenny called me and he's like, what is this hydration stuff? And we started that with Kenny. It's been what, like a 2.5-year conversation.
Yeah, it's September 2020 is when we first met, but we got the call a few months before that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so finding a company that was putting water molecules back together. So the work of the Hydration Foundation, which is what I founded once I finished my desert research, and I realized that states of water or phases of water do different labor in the body, and that there's a high hydration state that we're completely missing because we're not using foods and minerals. And then finding out how do we help clean up the water around the planet. The Hydration Foundation tries to bring forward all of these solutions so that people have a menu they can start to step into something as simple as adding a pinch of water, a pinch of salt to your water to start that process where it's tipping into this electrified, electroconducting state, into high plant diets, making sure you get mushrooms in your diet so you have the soil information, just changing the conversation of water just being wet to helping to understand it's an information transfer system. And that's incredibly important for us right now where we exist in our culture today.
So waters that I mentioned, you know, the tap water or even the reverse osmosis or distilled water, if someone was to drink those, right, without adding any minerals, without adding any structure to it, could it be a negative effect on the body?
Well, the body is very resilient, so it will still receive the moisture. It will still be trying to struggle to get those molecules into coherent state because your body does that work inside of you. It takes the water that we put in and organizes it from its own structured quality inside, from the cells and the body processes that allow the water then to get realigned. But the more you drink that kind of water, then the more work your body has to do to get the proper organization of the molecules so that they can do the signaling work that they need to do. So you have orchestrated cell songs singing together instead of in disharmony.
Absolutely. Yeah, because that's how, you know, we like to separate out these different organ systems, just as I was talking about the blood work and looking at cells under a microscope. And we think of all these things as so separate. But if we can improve the communication system in the body, which is essentially the water, correct?
Yes,
because all of our
absolutely.
mitochondria, the outer membrane, is surrounded by water, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So Mei Wan Ho, who's someone I really respect, a geneticist who looked at water, she made she made clear to everyone that all biology, all cell biology is based on water. It's a water-based system. And we just think of water as moistening without getting the extra, more important work that it's doing, which is conducting electricity for our energy, our healing voltage, literally, like up-leveling the voltage. If the electricity runs through the wiring, let's just call the water the wiring, the water molecules, runs through more cohesively and together, it's so much easier for our body to heal. And that voltage is now being used properly by the cells. And then the information it's carrying, like, hey, liver, we need more juice down here, blood, could you pay attention? The orchestra, the flutes need to be louder. It is a absolutely an orchestration system.
Absolutely.
So it's beautiful to think about. And then one last thing, Kelly, I'd like to say before we help let Kenny have his turn about what he's done to encourage water to be healed in our world, is that the hydration conversation isn't complete unless we're talking about movement, because we are
electricity.
We are all water is moved by our system of movement. And I'm not talking about marathons now. I'm talking about gentle, daily, novel movement where you get your elbow behind your back or your shoulder. You don't normally put it there, or you get your arm up in the air. So this is now a whole drainage system going on, which is just extraordinary, washing and flushing out everything. We don't think of movement when we think of hydration. All we think about is how much are we supposed to guzzle, and not how do we distribute it in the body through these glorious movements. And then that also adds extra electricity. Every time you move, you're generating electricity in the body, and then the water molecule carries that.
Yeah, I think it's so hard for people to kind of grasp, because when I'm talking about hydration, I'm talking about cellular hydration, which is like your body's ability to maintain water. And we have to look at things like grounding, movement, sunshine, all of these things allow your body to stay hydrated. The red infrared light, all of that stuff helps you maintain the cellular hydration. So I think, we're having a great conversation about the type of water that we drink, but we always have to, I think, bring up what's your non-native EMF environment like? How much is your skin touching the bare earth to gather those electrons that allows you to be hydrated? If we're not talking about those things, people could just be, drinking, putting in minerals, doing all this stuff. If they're not having movement, they're going to just constantly be behind the 8 ball, I think. Would you agree?
Oh, that's so well put. We're a system, we're a living system nested inside other living systems, all the way to the cosmos. And all of these are driven by the electromagnetic forces. And as speaking again as an anthropologist, as modern people, we are severed from vast amounts of information by the fact that we live indoors. We don't expose ourselves to sunlight. We are immobile most of the time behind our screens or in our cars. The food we eat is deeply diminished from any voltage or electricity. The water we drink is deeply diminished from those vital invidiating forces. What are we doing? No wonder we feel exhausted and deprived at the end of the day. We are. It's not a personal problem. It's not just your body's problem. It is the way our culture is set up. And so we want to start really moving in a different direction and getting ourselves outdoor, using sound is hydrating. I mean, movement is hydrating. Who's saying these things? We need to really help people get you're a water body. Yeah. And it requires and loves certain kinds of care and information coming into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I love this conversation, and I would love to hear, Kenny, how you got interested in this and started the company. This is, it's so interesting. I hope you are enjoying today's episode and learning a lot about water. If you are, please make sure to like this episode, share it with a friend or a family member, and leave us a comment. Leave us a comment underneath so that we know you're enjoying it, that you like this kind of content. And I want to thank one more sponsor before we jump back into the episode. That's going to be Upgraded Formulas. Now, they are my go-to source for understanding the mineral balance within the body. So a blood test is is only going to show you what's happening right now. A hair tissue mineral analysis will let you know what's been going on over the last 60 to 90 days. And most of us do have some sort of mineral imbalance. It's really important that we test for these things rather than just guessing and supplementing exogenously. So check out upgraded formulas. Use my code YOGI12 or YOGI if you have already used that one before. And let's jump back into today's episode.
When I first met Gina, she was the one who told me we got to focus more on hydration, and we're going to focus on basically, water recovery on planet Earth, because Mother Earth really needs very conscious, high vibrational frequency on the water. So I thought I was going to write, I'm going to start doing a nonprofit with her. It's very interesting. I thought that this is going to be the free for all, But now as I realized, as I hung out with her more, I learned a lot more about the greater vision. And that is besides the benefits of the water, the hydrogen, like she said, you got to hydrate people. And there's 3 ways. They have to eat the right type of food. They have to exercise. They got to drink the right type of water. It's a combination of everything. So it really changed the heart of our company to be more heart-centered, where we started to embrace everything. We said, look, if you go out there and you're traveling, go buy some chia seeds, get something in the water to help you out, right? If you feel thirsty, go get some spring water, go exercise. So whatever way to help the average person get better hydrated became kind of the more heart-centered approach to help everybody out, because at the end of the day, you want everybody to be better, right? Doesn't matter what they're doing, but it's better, the better the hydration, which is the better the health, because as we know, you can trace every single issue we have on health back to hydration. And that became a very powerful thing that I learned through her. But yeah, my journey is pretty interesting. It was 2014. I went back to do a translating meeting in Taiwan, so I'm originally from, and we were translating, basically a U.S. supplement company that wanted to bring kind of a whole food supplement to Southeast Asia, to China. So because of my dual language, I was able to connect with a lot of different people. And in that meeting, and I have no experience of any water. This is just me being an entrepreneur, connecting with people in health and wellness. And in that meeting, I met a gentleman called Mr. Shao. And he was the one who said to me after the meeting, "You're that kid I want to work with." So this was after 7 days of translating. So he said, "Why don't you come back and come to my house and let's talk about things that we can do together." So went back to Seattle and went back to Taiwan 2 weeks later. He took me to McDonald's and we sat there. He goes, "This is the American dream." So I'm just there hanging out with him, like eating a McDonald's breakfast sandwich, learning that that's what their version of the American dream is, the whole vision of the big franchise. But that's the meaning that I discovered. He's the guy who built the original Rubik's Cube that every kid plays with. In the late 60s, he got the patent development rights from an Austrian-Hungarian inventor and was able to put that together. And he also had a lot of medical technologies in EKGs, ultrasounds, ventilators. So he's very familiar with frequency, I would say. That's one thing he was very good at. And also lots of good stuff in manufacturing. So I realized I was with someone very unique. Yeah. Now the water came from a friend, my dad's friend, Sam, and Sam knew Professor Henry really well. Henry's a UMass graduate with a PhD in quantum physics and optomeric sciences, so wavelengths of light again. We met together. He brought me the original prototype of the ecosystem in the box, the original Spring Aqua idea. And I said to Professor, "This is a great concept, but without a real manufacturer and engineer," which is now my godfather, who I just recently met, this particular product has no future. So my role is simply marrying the professor with my godfather, put them together so we'd have what we have today, because you need to have the manufacturer engineer together, take the whole concept and bring it out. And so I'm the guy who kind of brought the two people together. I'm that third person, started the company, funded it, and get it going back in 2014. Now, the story of Professor is very simple. They looked at different springs around the planet. They looked at the Lord Springs in France, the Norno Springs in Germany. They looked at the Himalayan mountains. Obviously, working with Gina, the anthropologist, you get to learn a lot about what indigenous desert people were looking at to hydrate themselves. And we also knew that we had to differentiate, because a lot of systems out there really do a good job purifying, right? So when you purify, like you said, reverse osmosis and distilled water are great purification processes, but then that water is pretty much, it's pretty much like
Dead.
Gina said, dead. And
Yeah.
your body has to do a lot more to it to make it work, right? So we wanted to find a way to kind of do both, where we get the clean water, but then there's also the hydrational functional benefits of water that is great for your health from a hydrating standpoint. And also possibly if there's an antioxidant benefit, if we could make that work, that would be great. So by looking at the springs, we looked at the different rock layer processes. The Lourdes is very interesting, has a good amount of hydrogen gas in that water. We looked at the Nordno Springs in Germany. We learned a lot working with the Himalayan people up in the Himalaya mountains. They're the ones that would take the water down, keep it to a house, and when the kids get sick, they would actually give it to the kids, and the kids would drink it and actually heal. So we had many of those stories that we learned by talking with them. But the whole concept was to look at the whole process and see what is it we can do to bring that home, right, to your home. And so we built a system that has 14 to 17 different filters. And I would think of those filters as kind of like different rock strata, rock layers. So think about the tap water coming in. It's going through the 14 to 17 filters, being cleaned out. So you're getting rid of your pesticides, your PFAS, hormones and chemicals. And so getting very well done. Then remineralization, then structured water, So the whole concept here was, could we build an ecosystem in a box? Or a lot of our customers say, this is more like, from a visual standpoint, it's like a mountain in a box of spring water under your sink. So it's a very different feel. It doesn't use electricity. It's all completely natural, right? And that was kind of the goal, is to kind of figure out how to make that work. It was very interesting. So that journey started in 2014 with the original concept from Professor Henry. And my godfather, being very experienced in manufacturing engineering, taking it to a whole other concept by looking at all the different types of rock layers and minerals. But the idea was, could we build something that mimicked an ecosystem in a box? And that's basically what we all have right now in our house. It's a system that's 14 to 17 filters, depending where you live. We're able to customize filters by zip code, because every type of water in every state's a little bit different.
Different. Yeah. Yeah.
Very different. Yeah. Very challenging sometimes. And also different parts of the world that we've learned recently. In Europe, we've learned a lot about the water is very different as well than the US, right?
Wow.
So to create a system that has that ability, so in essence, it creates clean water using nanofilters. Nanofilters is what they use in space nowadays, where astronauts have to recycle the wastewater and use it again, right? Very high quality, very expensive technology. And then we're able to create what Gina was talking about, structured water, right? And structured water, what we, by definition, is that water in a different state or different phase, right? Where I call that the water in a blueberry, or the water in a strawberry, water in a watermelon, right? Or I call that the water in every living being, all of us, in the tissue, in the fascia, all that's structured water. Even trees and juices in plants, that's all structured water. And when I learned that, what hit me hardest was when I realized that indigenous desert people were eating plants as their main hydration. Then I realized in my diet, I better start eating some raw fruits and vegetables, because then I realized that sometimes you eat a pear, it's a lot more hydrating than drink a glass of water, right? Because a pear, I think, is 98% water. So that's what we made through the ecosystem about the structured water. And then obviously adding the hydrogen gas was something we learned that was a huge antioxidant benefit. And the fact that we're able to figure out how to dissolve it and stabilize it in the water so it doesn't evaporate in seconds. It could be hours, not days in the bottle before it evaporates. And so hydrogen gas that I learned later is actually a very potent antioxidant, right? So we talk about eating your antioxidant food, because we all have these free radicals in our body, and they'll harm us by stealing electrons from your blood, your bones, and your organs. And so we take the acai berries and eat the different types of berries, and the kale, the cabbage, because the antioxidant food have the ability to kind of neutralize the free radicals for us by donating the electron to the free radicals. Well, turns out the hydrogen gas is the kind of the most potent electron donator. There's a word for that, where a liter of hydrogen water, you might be getting about maybe 75, 750 bananas, 35 large carrots, 4 bags of spinach in antioxidant, benefits. And we found that was one of the key ingredients in the Lourdes Springs. where they go and heal. It's very interesting. There was a good amount of hydrogen gas built into that. So in essence, we created a system that, think about from a very easy standpoint, it took that tap water and made it into spring water. It's now you have high quality spring water in your house. It's structured water. It's got the hydrogen gas benefit. It's got the remineralization, and it's clean, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it becomes a very convenient system. You guys all have it. I don't know if you take it for granted now that you just go to the kitchen.
I love it.
There's just
It's
water there
amazing.
all the time, you know?
Yeah.
And so yeah, and then lately when I travel, I usually bring a demo machine with me, or I put in the glass bottles, put in my suitcase, and the water stays structured. I think the Hydration Foundation did some tests with the HIFO lab that after a month or two, the water's still structured.
That's
So there's a
great.
lot of cool things that we've done. And with the help of Gina, we've been able to really kind of change our company to become more heart-centered, where it's not just about the hydration, but it's also about helping Mother Earth, right? Structured water is very beneficial for plants, for soil, microbial community. It's also very beneficial when that structured wastewater goes into the sewage. That coherency heals Mother Earth. So there's a greater movement behind this, besides obviously us being hydrated, but the Earth, because of all the different EMFs we're talking about, the frequencies, the 5G, the 4G, and the 3G affecting the planet. We have a lot of customers that are very sensitive to those energies. And when they drink the water, they'll tell you within a couple of days, all of it's gone, maybe in 2 hours, right? So there's a lot of cool things that we're doing. So in essence, we created a very cool concept and ecosystem in a box where people are able to, get it, be educated on, and have in their homes. And I tell people if they want to get on my schedule, just go to our website, Spring Aqua, or maybe the link you provide.
Yeah.
Just schedule a chat, and I'll be on the other side hanging out with them, right?
Yeah.
So we have a lot of fun doing that. So, but yeah, that's kind of my story. I mean, really, I would say all my education is fairly new. So it's just good because it's recent success, recent learning, it's updated. And I'm always continuing learning from you guys and also Gina, and keep evolving the process.
Yeah. Well, I have a few questions I know people are going to ask. So I know hydrogen tablets, right? Those are a thing that's what I was using all the time, because it's like you said, a selective antioxidant.
Sure.
So it's smart, right? So it knows where to go in the body if there's damage happening, or if there's a fire, it can kind of go, oh, there's a fire, I'm going to go right to it. And it's a smart antioxidant, right? Selective antioxidant. Right. So I was using those hydrogen tabs a lot. My daughter did not love the taste of those, but she's one that has a lot of EMF sensitivity and just a lot of sensitivities in general. So that was the appeal for me, one of the appeals to get the system. Number one, I was carrying the 5-gallon glass jugs of Mountain Valley spring water up 3 flights of stairs, and that was really getting old. But the appeal of having the hydrogen water coming out as well was just like, okay, so what's the difference between using a hydrogen tablet and getting the hydrogen from the spring aqua?
It's the same concept. They both use magnesium to create. The hydrogen tablets will produce a much higher concentration up front because it's a nice little boost. But the taste is a big challenge for a lot of people. It just doesn't taste as good. But it also evaporates in about a minute and a half. So you got that very short time.
Drink it very quick. I always tell people, if you're going to use the tablets, drink it within the first minute. You're probably not going to taste good, but that's how you do it.
Yeah, so with Spring Aqua, it's just different because before I met Gina, we used to talk all about the hydrogen, but then I realized that the greater picture was hydration, right? So we've got structured water, we've got dissolved hydrogen gas, and it's not just, getting that nice boost of antioxidant, but what if we actually hydrated people properly? And so I learned that, if there weren't so many issues with toxins on the planet, or if we weren't exposed to so many toxins, and if you and I were drinking structured water for the last 30 years, we probably wouldn't need the hydrogen water because the structured water would do the trick. But I would say structured water is the foundation to our health. It's the foundation to hydration, whereas the hydrogen water is the rocket fuel. It gets you there faster, right? So that's the combination we have, and our system's always producing hydrogen 24/7. It's always there, and it's dissolved, stabilized. Now the concentration level is about a 1.4 to 1.6 ppm, which is not going to be that mega boost of, when tablets are quite a bit more. but at least it's always there. It's consistent, right? I say that's the big difference. And the big difference is it's dissolved and you're drinking good water. Yeah.
Also, the gentle release over, I think that's really powerful because we're so used as a culture to blast everything. That's the answer, right? Bigger is better. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that Kenny's system comes with 2 faucets, the handles, so that you can have your regular structured water to become hydrated. And then because our world is so compromised, to therapeutically have the hydrogen water that I often will mix mine together.
I just do same time.
I do the same.
Yeah, I just pull them both down and fill it up. And how long does the hydrogen stay good in that water for once you pour it into the glass?
If it's in the glass, it takes about 8 hours to completely evaporate, pretty steady.
Okay.
If it's a lid and the lid has a little kind of a rubber ring or silicone seal inside, I mean, you can last 3 to 5 days, not longer. Yeah, people have done a lot of cool tests with it. You know, I tell people just drink it fresh. You know,
yeah, that's what we
think of it as a massive hydration benefit. Yeah, that's how I look at it that way. And I mean, we're kind of spoiled because we have it in the house every day now. When I travel, I go seeking for water.
Oh, I bring it with me.
I travel with my chia seeds. The book Quench that Gina wrote has many different little remedies, you know. And so I travel with the chia seeds, and I usually go to Whole Foods and pick them up. I forget them, and I put them into the water, you know. So that's one way to have a little hydration fun.
Absolutely. Well, I'd love to hear, just kind of going back a little bit, some of I mean, I've talked with so many different people in the hydration space. I've had Dr. Pollack on, you know, I've had a lot of conversations around water, but what are some health challenges that can arise from drinking non-coherent water all of the time? I mean, I feel like so many things have a root in dehydration, but are there any main ones that really come to mind?
Oh, well, it's interesting, Sarah. When I first started, I started the Hydration Foundation after I met Jerry Pollack, Dr. Pollack. And I was like, wow, we need to spread this information. What are you doing about it? I'm like, Jerry, what are you doing about hydration? He's like, I just study water molecules. You know, leave me alone. And I'm like, oh no, come on. We're going to go do this. We're going to spread better hydration through this, you know, unique understanding of the water molecule structure, and connect it to people, to simple things like foods, mushrooms, chia seeds, and then going back to the original idea that that this phase of water exists in nature, where this is not new. What we're doing is some recovery work. This isn't new. It's new science. It's a new observation that we hadn't seen before, but water is longing to purify itself. And that's the work of Jerry Pollack, to show that in this switch, when you go from liquid to this more concentrated form, in its long tail, it can be as thin as 10% more viscous than regular water. That's why it's drinkable. It can go all the way to something we recognize as like bone broth or collagen. So in this state of water, it does different labor in the body. So and the most important labor it's doing, Sarah, is conducting electricity and coherent messaging between the cells. It's the orchestrator, it's the conductor, it's also the voice which moves, you know, the information along. So when you're missing that, it is so much harder to heal. And so, you know, what goes wrong where in your body depends on where your particular weaknesses are, you know, what your particular challenges that you're facing. I would love to bring up mood now and mental health, because we are in such challenging times, and it is really hard to hear the statistics. And it is very little in the conversation that hydration has so much to do with our mental health and buoyancy and resiliency, that water as our loving basis, if we don't have enough hydration, we just are having electrical storms up there, which are going nowhere. They're not coalescing into production for how do I keep this whole system well running. And we don't even have the conversation about hydration and joy. We're just trying to get ourselves out of mental distress.
Yeah.
But when you are well hydrated, then the opportunity to live in this above place, or this cohesion place, where we actually conduct the music of ourselves out into the world, and we sing in our happy, that's sort of an analogy, but not really. It's really we're really vibrating, singing essences, and we're not getting enough of what we need to live beautifully and share our song with the world.
Agree. And that's so interesting to hear that from an anthropologist, because you really look at how people have lived and you see this drastic change. And, everyone's so quick to blame food, which I think is huge, because you do talk about that. And most of the food that we, the American population and otherwise, they're boxed, packaged, completely dehydrated, devoid of the water. Same thing with they're taking all these supplements, right? Which is just another kind of dehydrated matter. And there's some supplements can be helpful, but people are looking to these powders and supplements to improve their health. And what are all those things missing? As you look at that as an anthropologist, we didn't have those things, right? We didn't, these are all brand new things. And at what point do you say, how health enhancing is this really,
Well, I do. So that's now, why I come back to hydration every time and just say, let's get hydrated. Let's make this generation, let's make us the ones who fix the water, heal the water, get it cleaned up on our planet as well as inside of ourselves. I think this is the only work I'm interested in, and also the only dance I want to dance.
Absolutely. Well, I'd love to know, as we kind of get closer to the hour, if there's a question or if there's something about water that I didn't ask either of you that you think is really important for listeners to understand.
I think the concept of being a recovery generation of water, where I think because the earth, obviously, as we can tell, an apple today was not the same apple it was 50 or 60 or 70 years ago. And that has a lot to do with the soil hydration, with the rainwater coming down, the Mother Earth's water being affected, obviously, by pollution, now EMF and everything. So I think one of the greater visions besides us being betterly hydrated, is Mother Earth could use a lot of structured water, right? That water can I want Gina to share, because this is her big passion, her big passion about hydration foundation and what we can do just simply from homes, getting tens of thousands of people to drink this water and, pee it out or waste it out, or getting people to do this in the back garden. But there's a lot of cool things. But Gina, can you share a little bit that's a much bigger need, right?
Yeah. So just in terms of having a whole house system in your home allows you to recover your property. These are not only the moisture that runs through, it's also the electromagnetic release that's broadcasting from your home and from your unit. And because water is able in this cohesive state to pass on these electromagnetic fields. And we aren't able to measure how far that goes because there's so many different variables, but we know it does go and go out. So if we're watering our lawns with structured water, that that then leaks to the property next to you and to so we want to pass that information on because people tend to think of water as a limited resource, and that's because they're thinking of it just in the liquid form and not in its electromagnetic fields. And the more cohesion you get in this state of water that Jerry Pollack identified, water then becomes a superconductor. So we're talking, and we now, as a people, have the capacity to understand that because of the internet and Zoom, and we get it. Okay, I can get that electromagnetic field all the way over here. So now we're talking about understanding water's doing the same kind of broadcasting. And we have extraordinary research and science and field studies showing the difference between plants that grow with water in a cohesive, structured state and plants that are struggling without that cohesion. And it's so that now the foods that we eat are going to carry more information that are grown with structured water. And if we're using that in our gardens and our homes, it's such a pushback to the EMF contamination, glyphosate issues, pesticide. So why I want to talk about pesticides is to share when glyphosate, when you get these electromagnetic fields through the water into the soils, the microbes revive. The microbes are down there dehydrated. Wow. And when they revive, they are the army that is going to take care of everything. We will never be able to put enough compost on compared to what is sitting in that soil that's just waiting to get rehydrated. And when you get those electromagnetic and voltage back in, they all revive, they start communicating, they're doing the same thing in the soils that are happening in our guts. And they then start eating up glyphosate. They then start organizing materials so that the worms can come in. Everything happens because it's ignited by water in the state that nature planned and intended, that we've interfered with. So the great goal, my dream about the Hydration Foundation is together collaboratively begin to irrigate our crops and our soils with simple vortex devices that clearly we have all the research we need, show an incredible improvement in soil health, soil accumulation, and then plant health and plant better food security around that. So yes, we're on a big mission, Sarah. Thank you for helping us share it and spread it and in any way we can. So
yeah, thank you. And just a side note, I have a baby. He's almost 6 months old. So my plants haven't been getting the same love and attention because I've been busy with the baby. And I decided I was going to water my plants with the spring Aqua Water. And wouldn't you know, the next day, they look beautiful and vibrant as though I hadn't been ignoring them for the last few weeks. I've had heard about this research with using the revitalized structured water on plants. I've read it, I've heard it, but I hadn't, it's one of those things you just don't necessarily try it out. But I did do that. And I was floored at the difference between what happened to my plants after I started using that water. So I'm never going back. My plants are now only going to be getting the spring Aqua Water.
Yeah, we get a lot of those stories from our customers, from roses growing new roots, orchids re-orchiding on its own. People have indoor plants growing like crazy in the house. Yep.
That's what's going there, just out of control.
Yeah, Gina and I, we've developed some whole house structured systems and farm systems coming out. So we'll let people know when that's ready. But that whole mission is to really recover water on Mother Earth. So it's more the recovery generation. It's something that we want to make it extremely affordable. But the idea is to show the importance of getting that out to have people. So drinking is one thing, that's for our health. But then also having it available for the environment is going to be important as well. Because all of us have children. And we all know they're going to get older. We're going to get older, and we have generations following us. So we definitely want to leave, the earth in a better place. And that's kind of the other vision that I learned through Gina. I thought when I first met her, I thought we're going to be a charity organization all of a sudden. I was kind of devastated in a nice way. But then I realized, okay, it's not about that. It's really there's a much greater vision behind, a much greater force behind what's going on, and how we can all become part of something much greater. Right? Whether it's drinking the system and using it from home or doing your garden, there's so many things we can do together collaboratively as a collective that I think is, that has an importance for Mother Earth. I think it's going to be cool. Yeah, we'll see that develop as we grow.
Absolutely. Well, I'll make sure I link in the show notes all of your information, link for Spring Aqua and Gina's book and her information. So this has been really wonderful. Thank you guys so much for being here and chatting today.
Well, thanks for having us. This is fun.
Yeah.